you've ever gotten into your Polestar and you hear your AC motors clicking, or you're having a problem getting temperature to one area, or having a problem with air control to one area, I'll show you how to fix those AC motors in this video. For tools you'll need a bit driver that can hold a T25 bit, or a ratchet that has a bit driver on it. And then you'll need a T25 bit or socket. Then for trim removal tools, you can use a flathead or a pick, works great. For sockets, you'll need a 10mm and a 7mm socket. And then I recommend a couple of extensions to get into those hard to reach areas. And for replacement parts, for me, I was having temperature issues, so my part number ends in 714. And then for your air distribution issues, your part number ends 715, and that'll be on the screen and in the description. So Volvo actually recommends that you start in the back to remove the TCAM module. So we'll remove the trunk cover by unhooking the loops on the side, and then we can pull straight up to pull it out of those little latches. And then we can set that aside for now. And then we'll come inside the vehicle on the rear quarter panel on the driver's side, and we'll use our little pick to remove that cover. It says airbag on it. And behind that cover will be a 7mm bolt we can remove with our ratchet. And then once that 7mm bolt is removed, we can pull off this whole trim piece as one material. And so there's just a few clips holding it in, and then give it a few tugs, and it should come off as one big piece. And then behind the carpet, towards the end of the trunk, you'll see a big black box that has all your TCAM modules to connect to your Wi-Fi on your phone. There's going to be a push clip towards the taillight that you'll need to push against and pull out, and it should come out pretty easily. I actually started on the wrong side here. So you'll pull against that clip and pull out the module. And then I zoomed in on the connector because sometimes it can get a little hard to take out. But you're going to push down on the side of the connector, and then it should be able to unlock the cable to pull out. Nice and easy. And then we can set that module aside while we're working on the car. Next we'll come up to the front, and you'll have these push clips. And it looks like somebody had been in here before, so mine was actually missing a couple clips. So you'll push those clips in straight down to make them loose, and then you'll pull up on the trim piece as one big piece. So I pulled up from the driver's side, middle, and then I come around to the passenger side, and there's some more clips over there. And you can pull out that whole trim piece to expose the battery as one big material. So next you'll come over to the battery and using a 10mm bolt holding in the negative connector to the battery terminal. Then I like to zip tie the negative connector to this little belt here just to make sure it doesn't fall onto the terminal, and then we get the car started again on accident. So I'll tie that terminal to the little belt here, and then we can move on to the passenger motor area, which is where mine failed. So for me, I wasn't getting any temperature on my passenger side, and it was just blowing ice cold air during the winter. So we're going to remove the glove box in its entirety. And to start with that, we have this trim piece on the right side that's just held in by clips. So just let out your glove box and then pull from the inside out. And then you have these two rubber stoppers on the inside of the glove box, and then 3 T25 bolts on the top. So there's 2 more T25 bolts on the bottom, and we'll start there. Once those bolts are removed, you can come back up to the top and remove those 325 bolts. And then we can remove the cabin air filter cover that allows us to access a little bit more of the glove box. And then there's these 2 7mm bolts on the inside of the glove box, and I like to use a couple extensions on that to get to them. And try and catch them if you can. If they fall in, they'll just fall into the glove box or onto the carpet. And then from there are 2 clips holding in the glove box, one on the right side and one on the left. So pull in from the middle on the side, and you can pull out those clips, and the whole glove box should come out as one big assembly. And then once you get the glove box out, there should be 3 connectors located on it. One for the glove box light, one for the position sensor on if it's open or not, and then one for your footwell light. My footwell light fell out as I was pulling it out, which yours might, but make sure that connector isn't damaged. For the side connector, we'll just come up from the top here and then push with our little pick and be able to pull it out. And then the footwell light will be located with that green connector in the very back. Then from there, we can pull out the whole glove box and set it aside. We can then locate the 2 motors controlling the temperature and the air distribution. The one I tapped is the temperature motor, and then the one behind it is the distribution motor. And then from underneath the footwell, I found it easiest to access both the T25 bolts holding the motor in, and there's just an electrical connector locating it too. And then you can just pull out each motor by itself and reconnect it. You may need to rotate the module a little bit to find its proper seating into it. There is a dowel that it hooks onto so that you can't mount it in the incorrect position. And then from there, we can reconnect the connector, and everything else for the glove box on the passenger side is done. So for reinstalling the glove box, we'll put the connectors back in. Just put in the position sensor and the glove box light connector first. Leave the footwell light unplugged, as it'll be easier to connect it once the glove box is fully seated in. So we push the glove box back in to reconnect those clips. Beneath the glove box, we can locate that little green connector that connects to the footlight and connect the connector to the footlight, and then the footlight actually clips into the glove box and we can push it in from there. And then from there we can thread in those 7mm bolts on either side of the glove box, and then the 2 25 bolts on the bottom and the 3 T25 bolts on the top. And then once those are all threaded in, we can re-put in our cabin air filter cover, and then we can attach our side trim piece. And then for the driver's side, it's actually much easier. You don't need to remove any material, and you can stick your head underneath the pedals area and you can see the motor just on the inside of the tunnel. And then as far as reconnecting the TCAM module, push the clip away from the light into it, and then the push clip will push straight up and it should seat itself right in that area. And then reinstalling the trim piece, the only thing to watch out here for is the weather stripping can get rolled up, so just make sure to have that weather stripping be above the material so that it seats right into the clips. And then once all the stripping is rolled above the trim here, you could push the clips in and from the back, and then the other clips you can come around to the passenger area and push in from there. And then now it's time to reinstall that 7mm bolt holding in that area. And then once that 7mm bolt is installed, we can reattach our plastic cover holding everything in there. And then for the rear, that's all that's left is to attach our trunk cover and re-loop those little hooks there. And we can move straight to the front here, remove our zip tie that we put on the belt, and reattach our negative terminal, tighten down the negative terminal with that 10mm socket again. And then from there, all that's left to do is put in our trim cover piece that covers the battery and a few other things. So I line it up on the driver's side, making sure the clips all seat in the right place. And then you can reinstall your push clips too. Just give it a couple pushes on each area, one on the driver's side, one in the middle, and then we can walk over to the passenger side and then push on the clips from there. And that's it. For time, I'd section out about 1 to 2 hours to replace the motors. And then for parts, I found them as cheap as $60 to $80 online at the time of making this video.